You take it.
All right. Yeah, I know a little bit of your story, but I have a feeling there's a lot of missing pieces, but I'm sure you'll fill them in. Anyway, everybody, my story is a bit complicated.
Are you done yet? No. Sorry. I'll be quiet and not interrupt. Please continue.
Great. All right. Anyway, but folks, so my story's a little complicated because I got two friends and I can't remember which one actually introduced me to Linux, and they both say that they're the one that did it. They want credit. So one of my friends, we're not even going to say which one, right? We're just going to say a friend. They introduced me to this little operating system called Linux when I was about 13 years old, and they had I can't remember for sure, but I believe, if the story, the one I believe is right, they introduced me to it on a virtual machine. And it was Ubuntu. I remember being introduced to Ubuntu, and it was very interesting. And I believe it was Ubuntu 12.04, and it was the server version. I wasn't introduced to the desktop version. I was introduced to the server version first, and I played around with that a little bit. And then I started to play with the desktop pretty quickly thereafter that. And the first version of Linux, not Linux Mint, but Ubuntu that I ran on bare metal system that I remember is 14.04. And I ran that as a dual boot, which I know Joe is not a fan of, which, I broke it several times, so not necessarily the best strategy. But anyway, it was a dual boot system with Windows 7 at the time, and it actually worked pretty good. I found myself spending more and more time on Ubuntu, but I eventually ended up going back to Windows, and then it was about 2017 that I decided to go back to the House of Linux, and I haven't went back. I'm still here running Linux on a daily basis all over the place. And to quote Joe, it's like potato chips. You can't just only have one. So I've got a Linux machine over here. I've got a Raspberry Pi running Linux over here. I've got the computer Joe's on right now, and the chat's on running Linux. What can I say? I might have a tiny bit of Linux in here. So. But anyway, that's how I got started with it, and then I started playing around with Bash scripts and writing Python, and ended up even getting a programming gig because my first client, they wanted somebody that could write code on Linux, and I just happened to have figured that out a little bit before that they reached out. So it ended up working out for me professionally and personally. So if that's not a testimonial for Linux, I don't know what is.
Wow. So you've been playing around with it since you were 13.
Yeah, it's been a while.
When I was 13, I was playing with a Commodore 64.
Oh my goodness. I think it was 13.
I was punching in BASIC, trying to get a ball to go across the screen, go.
Yeah.
That's what I was doing.
I will say this. I'm not clear for 100% sure. When I say 13, it's kind of my early teenage years. It might have been 14 or 15, but it was something along the lines of about 2012. And yeah, so something in that neighborhood.
That's right about the time, honestly, that I started to get serious about Linux was about 2012. Up to that point, I had played with it.